And it's odd because I want to kind of say something.
I can't do this.
Well, I mean, the real truth is those people are idiots.
How much of acting is managing those weird relationships that you have with these other people that you're acting with?
You need an environment of respect, but I like discovering things.
The unthinkable just happened, and it wasn't on the big screen. The Avengers didn't walk away from Thanos or Kang or even Doctor Doom. They walked away from Marvel itself, leaving fans stunned and the studio scrambling to explain how its greatest heroes could abandon the empire they helped build. What was once the most unstoppable force in Hollywood is now facing its most dangerous enemy yet. Not a villain from the comics, but rebellion from within. The very actors who defined an entire generation of blockbuster cinema have gone silent,
Yeah, and it's like the real Tony Stark gets like back somehow,
or even
and
their
there's like a
presence to
moment
Marvel's
where
latest
she's
project.
flying through and he's like,
And
who's
that
that?
silence speaks
And she's
louder
like,
than any press
Ironheart,
release
Mr.
ever
Stark.
could.
For the longest
He's
time,
like,
superhero movies were bullshit.
I like that girl.
Do you
and then he like goes to
meet
do
up
something
before
else.
you
Like,
commit
that would
to a
be
role?
like the level
Do you ever say like, I want to
something that
meet
I think
Captain
would
America?
possibly
Find out what the
happen.
fuck that guy's really like.
Was
At the
a
center of the
massive
storm lies
disappointment in the
Ironheart
ratings for them.
2, a project Marvel once
We do
promised
know
would
when
carry
you go and you
Tony
look at
Stark's
these
legacy
charts, the
into
first
the
couple days
future.
it was out because we have
Instead,
3 days of
it has
Ironheart
become
in
the
these
spark
numbers,
that
just like
ignited
we
a
have 3 days of
full-scale
Daredevil in
collapse.
these numbers.
Fans rejected
And
it,
Daredevil in those
critics
first 3 days
destroyed
had
it,
over 300
and now the
million minutes
Avengers
watched.
themselves are
And that
refusing
was
to
with
stand
less
beside it.
possible
What started as a
runtime
shaky
than
spin-off
something
has
like
grown into a
Ironheart.
symbol of everything broken
we know
inside
that it
Marvel
has a trash
Studios.
back.
This
Natalie
isn't just
AI thing
another
seems
box
utterly
office
preposterous and
disappointment or a
ridiculous,
divisive
and
Disney
even for an
Plus series.
MCU show,
This is a
I'm finding
cultural
it to be a little bit of a bridge
one
too
that
far to go.
threatens to erase
The heist
everything
crew,
Marvel
all
spent
lame.
decades
Every single
building.
one of them,
And
all
if you thought the
lame.
backlash to Eternals
He
or She-Hulk was
deserves
bad,
your
what
attention.
comes next will make those
Ironheart
controversies look like warm-ups.
deserves your
Because the
attention.
Avengers'
That's how I
silence
know. I
isn't
was
just
like, oh, they are
silence. It's
desperate
defiance.
to get people
And what
to
they're
watch
planning
this
next
show.
could bury Marvel once and for
After I
all.
did my
It
reaction,
lets me know that
kept
they want to bring the
getting-
character of Ironheart to life.
Hey,
that they want to
wasn't that
introduce
bad.
her
I
in
just
Wakanda
watched it.
forever.
Hey,
with
I
that
just
being
watched
the
the
lead
first
up
3
to
episodes.
his
It wasn't that
television
To really
series.
reckon with what that means for
And asked if I
the
would
life
play
that she
her.
wants to
From the
lead.
moment
It's very
Marvel announced
short-lived.
Ironheart,
It's brushed over
it was
really
framed as the
quickly,
heir
and
to
she
Tony
kind of
Stark's
reverts
throne.
back to
Dominique
her
Thorne was
old
introduced
self.
in
One thing
Black
that's for certain
Panther,
about this
Wakanda
series is that
Forever, with the
old
promise
agendas
that she
aside,
would
let's be
carry
very
forward
real
Stark's
about this.
genius,
There's a lack
his
of
wit,
character
and his
development.
sacrifice.
The
But
directing, the
instead of breathing
producing,
new
the
life
writing
into
is
the
just
MCU,
way off. It makes no
Ironheart
sense at
became
all,
the
and it's
first
very
crack in the
lackluster.
Empire's
There's no
foundation.
depth to it.
Robert
Does
Downey
it divide
Jr.
the haters,
himself,
or
the
is it
man who
another
defined
skippable
Iron
series?
Man,
It's always
gave
about
his
you,
blessing with
right?
a
It's always
smile,
about the
but even
audience,
he
the
slipped
main
in a
thing.
warning.
Doesn't matter if it's the
Dominique
2024
Thorne,
election
I have
or
seen
whether it's a
all
Disney streaming
of the
product.
first 3 episodes of Ironheart.
It's always about like how
did
evil
this
is the
even
actual
come
voters,
about?
how
On Good
evil are
Morning
the
America,
audience.
Downey praised Thorne's talent, but couldn't resist questioning Marvel's creative direction. His nervous joke about the villain Hood replacing Doctor Doom wasn't just banter. It was a hint of doubt, a glimpse into the unease simmering beneath Marvel's polished surface. When the show finally dropped, the reaction was brutal. Critics tore apart the writing, calling it incoherent and lifeless. Audiences mocked its contradictions. How could a character expelled from MIT for cheating also be a billionaire genius inventor?
Ironheart is practically unwatchable. Toot toot, Jerry laughs. Yes, there's an alphabet character. They admit Ironheart sucks, but look, they're getting ready to blame you for it because Ironheart fulfills low expectations with weak narrative, poorly written characters, and dull act.
There is also way too much focus on the LGBTQ community by the fandom in a negative manner, and it just needs to go away, I think, for a healthy story to grow, and for Riri to really share her limelight with...
Why would someone with advanced tech worth fortunes still resort to petty theft? Instead of presenting the next great Marvel prodigy, Ironheart delivered a character arc that made no sense. One review went viral for saying the series was the worst thing Marvel has ever produced. That wasn't hyperbole, it was a turning point. Marvel, once praised for airtight continuity and character arcs that felt earned, had just released a show that felt rushed, disjointed, and hollow. And the fans noticed. At the heart of the backlash was Riri Williams herself. She was meant to be a mirror of Tony Stark, a young prodigy shaped by tragedy, using brilliance to build armor as both weapon and shield. But where Stark grew from arrogance to sacrifice, Riri stayed stuck in selfishness. Instead of evolution, the audience got a protagonist obsessed with money, recognition, and power. Critics pointed to glaring contradictions. One episode showed her leaving a man to die with zero remorse. Another revealed her stealing, manipulating, and aligning with criminals while still being framed as a hero. The problem wasn't that she was flawed, Tony Stark was deeply flawed too. The problem was that the writing never gave her redemption, no sacrifice, no growth, just ego. Fans who had invested a decade in Stark's journey couldn't reconcile Marvel forcing them to cheer for a character who acted more like a villain than a hero. Analysts bluntly declared, Marvel has lost the meaning of heroism. Instead of showing that a hero is defined by choices and sacrifice, Ironheart slapped the label of hero on a character who did nothing to earn it. Supporters argued that the backlash was unfair, pointing out Stark's long list of reckless mistakes. But defenders couldn't drown out the central truth. Tony's story ended in redemption. Riri's story offered nothing but contradictions. That difference was fatal. The fallout was immediate and ugly. Online debates turned into all-out war. Some fans accused Marvel of hiding behind identity politics, claiming the studio weaponized race and gender to shield itself from legitimate criticism. Others accused audiences of bias, arguing they refused to accept new archetypes of heroism. The result? A toxic feedback loop that burned hotter with every episode. Instead of sparking unity, Ironheart divided the Marvel community. Longtime fans felt alienated, critics grew harsher, and casual viewers stopped caring altogether. The show, designed to be a bridge to Marvel's next generation, became a wall, splitting the fan base and eroding trust. Worse still, industry insiders confirmed what fans already suspected. The show was a Franken project, pieced together from rewrites and reshoots that contradicted each other. Characters had inconsistent backstories, arcs vanished mid-season, and subplots, like Riri creating a sentient AI modeled after her dead friend, were treated as afterthoughts. Critics compared it to throwing away an entire movie concept just to fill 6 episodes. By the end, Ironheart wasn't just a bad series, it was a lightning rod for everything wrong with Marvel in Phase 4 and 5. Sloppy writing, ideological preaching, and a studio more focused on synergy than storytelling. What should have been the future of the MCU became the clearest sign that Marvel's magic was gone, and the Avengers themselves were watching. Quietly, but with growing anger. For years, Marvel's empire didn't just rest on its characters, it rested on its actors. Robert Downey Jr., Chris Evans, Scarlett Johansson, Jeremy Renner, and Chris Hemsworth weren't just stars. They were the living embodiment of Marvel's dominance. Their faces sold billions in tickets. Their presence legitimized every new project. But when Ironheart 2 was announced, something unprecedented happened. The Avengers said nothing. Scarlett Johansson had already fired the first warning shot when she sued Disney over Black Widow's streaming release. The lawsuit wasn't just about money, it was about betrayal. Disney violated her contract, tried to downplay her, and treated one of its most bankable stars like she was disposable. Johansson's bold stand proved that Marvel's golden children were no longer willing to play nice. Jeremy Renner followed with his own act of defiance. Marvel approached him for Hawkeye Season 2, only to offer him half his previous salary. Renner refused instantly, calling the offer insulting. His blunt rejection wasn't just a financial decision, it was a public statement. Marvel didn't value its veterans anymore. Even Chris Evans admitted he resisted Marvel's original 9-picture deal, fearing he'd lose control over his career. And Chris Hemsworth confessed he'd nearly given up acting before Thor saved him, only to feel years later that the role had drained his creative energy. These weren't casual complaints, they were confessions that Marvel's empire had been built on contracts, pressure, and exhaustion. When Ironheart 2 came into play, the silence from the Avengers cast wasn't accidental. It was deliberate. Their refusal to promote, endorse, or even mention the project was the clearest act of rebellion Marvel had ever faced, and it left the studio scrambling. Marvel had a formula, and for a decade it worked perfectly. Launch a new hero, then bring in the Avengers to legitimize them. Downey would send a message, Evans would give an interview, Hemsworth would make an appearance, and suddenly fans felt invested. But with Ironheart 2, that formula collapsed. The Avengers weren't there, and their absence was deafening. The silence wasn't just about one project. It was a culmination of years of tension. Johansson's lawsuit, Renner's insult offer, Evans' contract fears, Hemsworth's fatigue. It all came together in one moment. For the first time in Marvel history, its stars collectively refused to play along. To fans, it was symbolic. These weren't just actors turning down roles. These were the very heroes who had sacrificed everything on screen, now refusing to sacrifice their reputations off-screen. They wouldn't be used to prop up what they saw as Marvel's weakest, most desperate gamble. Their silence spoke louder than any press release or Instagram post ever could. Inside Hollywood, the move was seismic. Without the Avengers backing, Marvel's carefully crafted synergy strategy fell apart. The same actors who once carried the brand to global dominance were now letting it collapse by simply staying quiet. And if Marvel couldn't rely on its Avengers, what did it have left? The exodus wasn't announced in headlines. It wasn't shouted in interviews. It was whispered in silence. And in Hollywood, silence is rebellion. While the Avengers were walking away in public, another war was being fought behind closed doors. Marvel's decline wasn't just about bad scripts or unhappy actors, it was about the creators who had built the very foundation of its universe. In 2023, the families of Steve Ditko, Don Heck, and Gene Colan sued Disney, demanding recognition and rights for the characters their loved ones had created. Disney's response was predictable: aggressive lawsuits, endless paperwork, and a strategy designed to drain the families of money and energy. They called these estates annoyances, reducing the legacies of Spider-Man, Iron Man, and Black Widow to footnotes in contracts written decades ago. But this time, the corporate machine miscalculated. The creator families didn't back down. They banded together, sharing resources and forming what insiders called a creator coalition. Their determination forced Disney into settlements, one after another. By December 2023, even Ditko's estate, co-creator of Spider-Man, secured a victory. The details were sealed, but the message was loud and clear. Disney had been forced to bend. Public opinion sided with the families. Fans who once only cared about the heroes on screen now saw the ugly truth behind the curtain: how the architects of their favorite myths had been underpaid, overlooked, and disrespected. The lawsuits didn't just embarrass Disney, they revealed cracks in the empire's foundation. For the first time, Marvel wasn't just losing fans, it was losing moral authority. The families of its creators had won, and Disney's image as the all-powerful House of Mouse had taken a devastating blow. The lawsuits against Disney pulled back the curtain on something fans had long suspected: the arrogance of a corporation that thought it could own mythology itself. For years, Disney's strategy was simple: buy everything, crush competition, and use endless contracts to lock down control. But when the creator families fought back, they exposed just how fragile that system really was. Internal documents revealed Disney lawyers referring to Marvel's original creators as contracted workers and legal nuisances. To the company, the people who gave life to Spider-Man, Iron Man, and Doctor Strange weren't visionaries. They were obstacles. That revelation hit harder than any negative review. It showed fans that the same studio preaching heroism on screen was practicing exploitation behind the scenes. Even more damning was Disney's monopoly playbook. From the Fox acquisition to lawsuits against small startups, every move was designed to eliminate competition and tighten control. The family's victories cracked that playbook wide open. Suddenly, Disney didn't look like the benevolent giant of entertainment. It looked like a supervillain exposed. And in Hollywood, reputation is everything. Once fans start questioning your integrity, no amount of CGI or billion-dollar budgets can buy back their trust. The fallout didn't stop with Marvel. Warner Brothers began renegotiating contracts with DC creators. Sony, forever juggling Spider-Man rights, started taking extra precautions. Even Universal, which held scraps of Marvel's Hulk rights, realized that respecting creators wasn't just moral, it was a business necessity. The families had changed the industry's DNA. Streaming services, terrified of being the next Disney, quietly rewrote their deals. Production companies scrambled to prove they valued creativity, not just contracts. What started as a few families fighting for legacy had snowballed into a cultural reckoning. Respecting creators wasn't just optional anymore, it was survival. For Marvel, though, the timing couldn't have been worse. With Ironheart collapsing, fans abandoning Phase 5, and the Avengers refusing to endorse the future, Disney was left exposed. Instead of standing tall as the king of franchises, Marvel had become the cautionary tale everyone else was determined not to repeat. The irony was brutal. The same studio that once marketed heroes as its brand identity was now seen as the villain in its own story. The Avengers didn't just defeat Thanos on screen. Off-screen, they defeated the very empire that turned them into icons. By refusing to support Ironheart 2, by staying silent when Marvel needed them most, they delivered the final blow. Silence became rebellion, rebellion became exodus, and exodus became collapse. Marvel's golden age didn't end with Endgame. It ended when fans stopped believing, when actors stopped caring, and when creators fought back. What was once the most powerful force in Hollywood is now a fractured empire, alienated from its stars, disrespected by its fans, and dragged into court by the very families who built its foundation. For audiences, the message is clear. The Avengers won't save Marvel this time. The actors have walked away, the families have stood up, and the fans have moved on. what remains is a studio haunted by its own arrogance, desperately trying to recapture a magic that may never return. Marvel's story was once about heroes rising against impossible odds. But now, its greatest story might be the one playing out behind the scenes. A story of betrayal, rebellion, and an empire that fell because it forgot the one thing even superheroes can't survive without: respect. And if you thought the end of Endgame was emotional, just wait. Because this is the real ending of the Marvel saga.